My name is Christina Atchison, Public Information Officer for the Montecito Fire Department. We really appreciate you all being here tonight. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that we do have Spanish interpretation available thanks to Regina Santos Moreno. She's at the back of the room and can provide you with Spanish interpretation of tonight's meeting. We'd also like to welcome and thank our sign language interpreter, Joe Black. Thanks for being here, Joe. And thank you to El Montecito Church for hosting us and being such a great community partner. We have several community organizations here tonight that you saw in the courtyard as you walked in. Thank you to Santa Barbara County Fire Safe Council, the Red Cross, Mirage, and Montecito Trails Foundation for being here. Hopefully you had a chance to visit with them on your way in, and if not, please stop by their information tables on your way out. A quick overview of our presentation tonight. Our wildland fire specialists, Nick Elmquist and Mae Juarez, will give us a look at what we're expecting this fire season and how you can prepare your property to be resistant to wildfire. Our Division Chief, Travis Ederer, will talk us through current challenges to our local evacuation corridors during construction and how to adapt your evacuation plans. We are also joined by Santa Barbara Assistant Chief of Police, Mary Linda Arroyo, Captain Mike Logie with the California Highway Patrol, and Commander Brad Welch from the Sheriff's Office. They're here to explain how we all collaborate before, during, and after an emergency. Kelly Hubbard with the Office of Emergency Management will share some important tips on how to receive alerts during an emergency. And our Fire Chief, David Niels, will share his message for the community this fire season. We also have representatives here from the Carpinteria Summerlin Fire Protection District and Santa Barbara City Fire Department. Thanks for being here and for being such invaluable partners. And if you live outside of the Montecito Fire Protection District and have specific questions for where you live, we're happy to connect you with the right agency. Special thanks to the 1st District Supervisor's Office, Doss Williams. I think we'll have a few of his representatives here with us tonight. We're grateful to have open lines of communication at the local level with Supervisor Williams, as well as at the federal level with Congressman Salud Carvajal's office. We are happy to relay any questions or concerns you may have to your elected representatives. And thank you to our Montecito Fire Protection District Board of Directors for your support and guidance. We have Director Sylvia Easton and Director Stephen Doherty here with us tonight. Thanks for being here. To start us off, Montecito Wildland Fire Specialist Nick Elmquist will give us an update on the fire danger outlook from his perspective as a fire behavior analyst.
Christina?
I think I'll use this mic over here so I can point to the screen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about fire danger, the factors that go into fire danger, and a little bit about our current weather and fuels conditions and how that could relate to predicted and potential fire behavior. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a triangle. That's called the Wildland Fire Behavior Triangle. There's three main components. Topography. Everybody's probably familiar with that. It's pretty stagnant unless you're a geologist through time, but it very rapidly changes as you move across the landscape. The weather, so that has to do with significant changes throughout the day. It could be changed per hour. Overnight, obviously, significant changes in our local weather environment. We have a local wind called sundowners. And then fuels, and that those landscapes that you see up there are carpeted with a vegetation type that we collectively call chaparral. And given our Mediterranean climate, the weather is, the precipitation's compounded within a few months, and then we get these prolonged drought conditions every year, and so our chaparral vegetation type is involved with that sort of precipitation events, and so they get periodic or incrementally more flammable as we go throughout the year, and we'll talk about that as well. So this is just a graph that shows all the fires that have occurred throughout the county in the last 100 years. You can see pretty much every burnable landscape other than the Sandy Valley and agricultural and areas right along the coastline have seen fire at some point. And it's because we have extreme conditions of those three components at some point throughout the year. Extremely steep slopes, we're about 300 foot elevation here. Montecito Peak, just due north of here, is over 3,000 foot elevation and just about 1.5 miles horizontal distance. The fuels that I talked about and our weather with a very well-known weather event called the sundowners that everybody's probably familiar with, has lived here for a while. So this graph here shows the precipitation across the county since 1968. And I just like to point out that line right along the middle is average. So average precipitation throughout the valley is 16 inches. And what you'll see is a lot of years that are below average and intermixed years that are above average. So we had a pretty prolonged drought from 2012 to 2016, these areas there. And then we had some above normal rainfall. And then, as you all well know, we had several years of drought. And then we had a pretty extraordinary year, 200% of average, about 32 inches of average rainfall in Santa Barbara County this last rainy season. The wet winter wasn't just in our local area. This is just a graphic showing the amount of snow that's accumulated in our Sierra Nevadas. This is taken today of average snow since the mild spring and significant snowpack. We have over 300% in the northern Sierras, 360%, and over 400% that still remains in the southern Sierras. So that's all going to impact this summer's fire activity up there. This is last year's slide when I mentioned about the drought conditions that our whole western United States was under. As you can see, mostly all the western states were in some sort of drought. 99% of California was in some sort of significant drought conditions. Those dark red and maroon are the two most extreme drought and exceptional drought. This is a slide from today. You can see much relief. So that rain and snow really helped our reservoir and our drought conditions. The 99% that was in drought conditions, now there's only 5% of the state which is labeled as some sort of drought, and it's usually at the very lowest levels, the abnormally dry conditions. So the weather impacts our fuels, the chaparral vegetation like I mentioned. This is just a graph showing we do live fuel moisture readings. Our local fire agencies, our partners do it, the Forest Service does it. The red line shows the critical conditions at 60%. And then it's average, and there's 5 different sampling sites that the county fire does. This is chamise. They use chamise on all the sites. And I just like to point out, you know, the peak fuel moistures that we had this spring. It's common sense. The moisture sucked up a lot of that lot of rain that occurred. But now we're drying out. And regardless of the amount of precipitation that we have in the winter, we're going to get the critical conditions come the fall months. And that's going to be important when we start talking about your preparedness actions. It may be hard to see up there, but this is one of our fire danger indices. It takes into consideration the fuels and the weather. It's called the energy release component. It shows the amount of fuel that's available ahead of a fire. The gray line in the middle is average. Our blue line is what we've seen this year. So if you can see that, or if you're looking at your paper, well below average to this year, but we're on an upward trend, and with the predicted weather over the next couple of weeks, we can assure you that that's going to continue to rise and then peak in the August, September months when our fuels are the driest and we get those sundowner winds that come back out in the fall. This just shows the number of fires that occur throughout the year. You can see that the number of fires peak in our summer months. Majority of our fires are human caused, so when we have higher recreational activity in our mountains, where you see the most ignitions. But the most acres burn in September, when our fuels are the driest and our weather conditions and our fire danger is greatest. So the overall message, this is the map that predicts in this September what part of the country will be above normal. That's the red in terms of large fire potential. And just very few areas of the country. Relative to last year, you can see a lot more of the country was above normal. And the Sierra Nevada is right there in green, which is actually below normal. But hopefully you guys get the message that regardless of the precipitation, that we're always going to have heightened fire conditions as we get into the late summer and definitely in the fall months. I'll just highlight this graph that I showed earlier about the rain. 2008, 100% average precipitation, 16 inches. And if those of you remember, the Tea Fire started on November 13th, burned just 2,000 acres, but over 200 homes in just a few short hours. So regardless of the weather of the last winter, it's important that you guys are proactive and take actions to mitigate wildfire. And I'll bring up maybe to start talking about the specific actions you guys can take. Thank you.
Okay, so as Nick just explained to us, obviously the picture that we're looking at in fire danger is a little different this year than we were looking at last year. But like Nick said, what we want to really impress upon you this evening is it's not time to let your guard down. In fact, it's the opposite. This is the time to really take the time to focus on your defensible space, hardening your structure, and having a plan so that you're ready when when wildfires do come into our state. So it might be kind of hard to see with the glare here. So looking at these pictures, it really paints the picture that there's a very common narrative that wildfires come into communities as a big long wall of flame and it comes through and it takes homes out. We know that that's not the case. So these pictures might look familiar to some of you. Over here on the left, we have before and after the Thomas fire. Up here on the right, we have the Lilac fire in San Diego. And then at the bottom right is obviously a really popular photo that is passed around often, and that's the devastating campfire. So what these pictures show is very common to what communities are left questioning. So oftentimes community members come back into their homes and they're left with a lot of questions as to why homes burn, and yet all of the vegetation is unscathed. Why green trees are still green, why their lawns are still green. And I use the Lilac fire up here in San Diego as an example. So if you can't see it on your screen, you can look at it in your pamphlet, there's pictures right there. So what we see here is a community that was completely reduced to a pile of ash. You can see there's still smoke in the air, the fire is still burning, but you'll see these two huge rows of green eucalyptus trees, the green grass, and the oak trees are completely untouched. So why does this happen? So one of the things we want to talk about is there's 3 ways that wildfires can impact your property. So we tell people that there's direct flame impingement, which is the least common, and so that's direct flame impingement from the wildfire or a nearby structure. The next would be radiant heat, and so that would be from vegetation that's too close to your home that's on fire, or again, another structure. And then third, the most common, is ember cast. And embers can affect wildfires out to a mile in advance of a fire. And ember cast is actually the cause of 80 to 90% of structural loss on wildland fires. So the good news is that you can easily help the resiliency of your home by doing a couple of minor details around your home. So there's a lot of ways that you can harden your home. I'm just going to talk about a few of the big ones here tonight so that I don't bore you with an hour of standing up here of great things that you can do around your home. So we're going to start with talking about your roof. So in this picture, you'll see that this is an asphalt shingle roof. If you have a wood roof, we highly recommend that you upgrade your roof to a non-combustible roof, like a tile roof or a concrete shingle like you see here. A lot of times, people really like the look of those wood shingle roofs. So if you look outside here, you can actually see the rooftop up here. It looks like it's wood shingles, but it's not. So it's actually a concrete panel that you can put on your roof that still maintains that feel of an old shingle roof. In that same picture, you'll see a picture of some rain gutters. So it's not an exaggerated picture. You'd be really surprised how full your gutters are. I can't tell you how many times Nick and I will go on a defensible space inspection, and it's an amazing home. It's very well pristine. Everything is done perfect, and then you walk around the backside, and there's actually plants growing out of their rain gutters. Rain gutters fill up really fast. So there are gutter guards that you can install. There is a do-it-yourself option. However, we really recommend that you hire a licensed professional when doing the gutter guards. We have seen that some people get some issues when they're doing it themselves. You can easily get up there with a blower or a broom once a month and blow those out. It makes a huge difference. Over here you see a picture of a fence or a deck on fire. So wooden fences definitely, if they're attached to your home, they can act like a wick and they will bring wildfire directly to your home. So if you have a wooden fence that touches either your garage or your home, we recommend that you just replace the 5-foot section that's connected to your house with either a metal or a vinyl material. And honestly, the products now are so advanced that you can't even tell most times that someone has replaced that section. The picture on the bottom left there, it's tough to see what's going on, but that's actually a vent. And so vents retrofit is a very hot topic these days, and we're really happy to hear it. So one little secret is that it's really easy to do it yourself. You can absolutely upgrade your vents for about the cost of 2 venti lattes from startups. Probably more like Pierre Le Grand, I'm going to take that back. More like Pierre Le Grand prices of a large latte. But you can actually go and buy the mesh and do it yourself. After this, if anyone is interested in it, I have a great YouTube video link that shows you exactly how you can do that. However, I do want to say that we really recommend that you reach out to a professional. They come out and do free estimates. So there's a couple of reasons that we recommend that. One, it's free. You can't really beat that price. 2, they come out and actually identify all of the vents around your home. So it seems like it's an easy thing, but there's so many different types of vents on each home, whether they're on your roof or in your attic, and so having someone come out and identifying those for you is very valuable. The third thing is that they're going to give you all the measurements of each of your vents. So it's tough to estimate what a vent retrofit is going to cost. It really doesn't matter how fancy or big your home is. It really depends on the amount and type of vents you have. So we've seen everything from $700 to $18,000 here in the district. I know that's a really tough pill to swallow, but when you think about all of these things are actually going to really contribute to making your home more resilient. So we do have some great vendors around, and if anyone is interested in that, they can stay after the meeting and we can give you any of that information. The last thing I want to point out on this screen is a picture of this garage door here on the bottom right. Looks pretty simple, right? Looks like a good garage door. So the thing with this garage is you can see there's a tiny little gap there, and you can actually run your hand underneath that garage. If you can run your hand underneath your garage, members can easily get into your garage. If you're anything like me, you have a bunch of stuff that's flammable in your garage, stored right there, which we highly don't recommend. The best thing to do is go into your garage and actually look at it from the inside. Any place that you see light peeking through is an easy entry point for embers. So a lot of times garage doors get overlooked, but they're oftentimes the Achilles on the properties. So when we talk about defensible space, we want to ensure that everything is a holistic approach. It's not just hardening your home, it's not just maintaining your defensible space, and a lot of times people get upset when we talk about defensible space. It doesn't need to be bare dirt. That's never anything that we encourage, and that's not what we want to see. We really just encourage you to remove any dead material, keep up on your weed whipping, and then we really encourage folks to use hardscaping and then fire-wise landscaping techniques. I'm going to probably be public enemy number one when I say this right now, because I know everyone loves these Italian cypress here in Montecito. Up in this upper right-hand picture, I'm sure I'll have some folks that come to me after and are not happy with me. Those cypress trees are so incredibly flammable. If you want to have them on your property, that's great. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. We just really recommend that you don't have them anywhere near your home. No matter how well you hydrate them and no matter how well you maintain them, there's always a bunch of dead debris and dead material in there, and they just completely go up, and they are such a hazard. So I know they're beautiful, but we could easily come out and do a defensible space survey, and we can make some recommendations on different types of plants that you could use. So in this picture, I just want to highlight, these are some examples from houses here in Montecito, over the years that we've taken pictures of. On the right-hand side here, there's some great use of hardscaping, using papers and rocks to kind of make a separation in between the vegetation on the property. A lot of times vegetation will just lead a fire right to your home. So in this picture, that looks like a wooden deck, but it's actually made of non-combustible material. It looks like a beautiful wood deck. It's not going to get weathered. It's not going to splinter. And then over on the left-hand side, again, it's just another great example where people have been using some papers to break up the fuel and create buffers. This is like one of my favorite things that we see here in Montecito on the left here. You can see the property owner leave it right to the property line, like straight up the line, and then left the rest for their neighbors. So obviously on the left is what we want to see, on the right is not what we want to see. We want to make sure that you're always keeping up on your weed whipping. I know this year it's a tough year to weed whip because we've had so much moisture that the grass and the mustard just keep growing. But we really encourage folks to keep up on their weed whipping. The photo on the right is a great example of keeping cleared underneath a deck. So decks often provide space that you can store a bunch of materials because you think people don't see it. Unfortunately, that really adds to the flammability of everything because embers love to just fly right under decks and then they're going to fester into everything that you have stored under there. So this property is a great example. They really maintain their weeds and then they don't have anything stored underneath their deck. So this is an oak tree. The before picture on the left-hand side, you can see it's a healthy oak. However, all of the limbs are touching the ground, touching the grass. And so what we think about when fire gets through the grass, with the limbs touching the ground, it can easily get into the tree and then transition into a fire in the tree, which is not what we want. Over here on the right-hand side, you can see they've really maintained it, limbed it up, and the tree is much healthier and happier. Maintaining your driveway is also equally important. So as you can see in this picture on the left, engine 91 can barely squeeze through this driveway. You have to make sure that you maintain 13.5 feet vertical clearance all the way down your driveway. It can make a big difference for you to get out of your driveway and us to get in. So that's challenging for 91 right now, and that's without any fire. On the right-hand side, if my pickup truck can't get into your driveway, a fire engine definitely isn't going to get into your driveway. So I know Chief Federer is going to talk about Rice-A-Go, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but I do just want to talk about a few things that I try to leave residents with when we do a defensible space inspection. So Nick referenced the weather, he referenced the sundown winds. Oftentimes in Santa Barbara, in Montecito in the fall, we go into red flag warnings for sundown and wind events. So there's a picture here of the fire danger signs. We have 4 of those posted around the district. It's really important that you pay attention to where we are with our fire danger. It's always going to tell you what level we're in. When there's a red flag warning, we post signs around the district letting community members know that we're in a red flag condition. When you see those things out there, it's really the time to start paying attention to your habits and making sure that you're really paying attention to a couple key things. This picture on the top here is a picture of folks trying to evacuate the campfire. But they're not evacuating, they're in line at the gas station. Every time we have a mass evacuation, the gas stations end up running out of fuel and the lines are miles long. So whenever there's a red flag warning, you should always just make it a habit to go home at night with a full tank of gas. The last thing you want to be doing is sitting in a gas station line when you're supposed to be evacuating. The next picture of this guy that looks pretty confused, no one really knows what he's doing. Oftentimes in an evacuation, your power's going to go out. I don't know if you've ever gone into your garage and tried to open the garage door when there's no power, and click, 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 it's not going to open, and even worse, it's not going to close. It's pretty tough, it's pretty challenging to go into your garage and manually open those doors. So practice it when there's not smoke in the air. If that's not something you're comfortable doing, when there's a red flag event, you should probably think about parking your car in your driveway and not deal with the garage. A lot of times people evacuate, and in their haste they forget to close the garage door, and then all of this great work that you've done is all for naught. I put a picture here of a cell phone because I'm a huge offender. My cell phone battery is dead right now. We're not in a red flag warning, so I can make some points with that. But if you do have an evacuation notice, if your cell phone battery is dead, you're probably not going to get it. So if you know you're in a red flag warning and you have a high fire danger, it's probably a good idea to keep your cell phone charged. And then the one here at the bottom of the screen is a picture of keys. I will say, I'm going to be completely transparent, that one is I'm the most guilty of. I go home to little kids and then everything goes out the window and I usually throw my keys somewhere. But when you get an evacuation, and I will say that the Thomas fire was an anomaly for all of us. Never again will we have days to prepare for an evacuation. Oftentimes it's either you're at work and you can't get home or it's in the middle of the night. And you don't want to be searching for your keys in the middle of the night when you're trying to evacuate and get everything off your home. So without stealing any more of Travis's thunder, I'm going to hand it off to you.
So I'm going to bring up my partners from the law enforcement side here, and you guys are welcome to sit back down after you say a little piece if you want to see around the awkwardly stand up here. Basically, I'm going to introduce the partners here. We have Brad Welch, he's the commander with Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office. He's been a partner of mine, I would say, for close to 10 years. We've worked on multiple incidents together. We have Assistant Chief of Police, Mary Linda Arroyo, and I've also worked with her in the last few years as I've promoted through the ranks, and Captain Mike Logie with the California Highway Patrol, who I haven't worked with a whole lot personally until more recently when I promoted to this position. So relationships are key for us when it comes to evacuation. We all need to be on the same page. We need to understand our plan. We need to know who we need to contact, how we contact them. I need to know who to call at the Sheriff's Office or at OEM, or how to bring Santa Barbara PD in. We bring them in as unified commanders as well. I'm going to have them briefly talk about what their part is in that, and then I'll end in that piece with me talking about how Wildfire is part of that. So, Manuel.
Thanks everybody for having me. Been off and on working in the Carp, Summerlin, Montecito area for about 24 years. Like the division chief said, we worked together. I happened to be the on-duty sergeant the night the Thomas fire came in to Carp Maria, and then the on-duty sergeant the night of the debris flow. So you guys' community is very dear to me. We have a great relationship with our 4 agencies as well as all the other agencies within the county. The sheriff is just one entity that sits at the table making decisions on evacuating more for weather-related events that are kind of pre-planned. These events that happen in the middle of the night or right away, we all kind of huddle together and make that decision very quick. Once the decision is made to evacuate, the sheriff works with OEM on getting the messaging to your cell phones, making sure you guys get the alerts, and it's our sheriff's stance that along with those messages, he also will deploy deputy sheriffs to your doors to make sure we do door-to-door notification if we can, in case somebody can't get that message. Our most important role is after you've evacuated, we are in charge of keeping your property intact. When it comes to property crimes, there's nothing more heinous than somebody that preys on you after you've evacuated your residence. We're fortunate enough to help out Lake Tahoe at the Wildfire fire, and when we got there, we arrested dozens and dozens of people that were looting in that community, and we do not want that happening to your community. So when you leave, we deploy dozens of sheriff's deputies throughout the community. We man closures to make sure the bad people don't come in, and if they do, they're dealt with swiftly. So that's our role, and I'll pass it to Assistant Chief.
Thank you for having me here today, and I will be very brief. Exactly ditto what the Sheriff's Department. We're all one team, and I would challenge anybody in Santa Rosa to find a better county that works better together, public safety-wise. There is no difference with the fire department, the police department, or any of the other public safety officials. We're one team when we work together that way. We've also included our public works department so that we can get large-scale vehicles in and out of areas. So we're coming to help you, and we're here to maintain all the public safety.
Thanks for that. That's awesome. That's less for me to say. So, long story short, for me, I've been here for about 3 years working with the CHP in Santa Barbara. I'm the commander at the Santa Barbara station. We have 2 other stations in the county, not specifically for this county, for this area, but we're talking about evacuations and messaging and all that. There are a couple other areas that are also involved in built in Santa Maria. But for Montecito specifically, our number 1 mission is to preserve life and property, and at the same time, make sure that we protect, get people in good moving through the county in an efficient manner, and that evacuation is a very important part of that. So we'll work hand in hand with the other agencies, including Caltrans, county roads, specifically assist the sheriff with evacuations and protecting property. When it comes to the freeway, I know that's a question that's probably going to come up. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. I encourage you to go to sproads.com ahead of time, stay abreast of the construction so you have an idea of what's going on before an emergency occurs. You'll be informed as the emergencies arise and roads close. We'll get those messages out, and then we'll also be out there helping guide people to where they need to go. And we move everybody efficiently as we can through the evacuation. But there's so many variables that go into evacuation, we can sit up there all night and talk about the what ifs about it. But at the end of the day, what you're going to have is a united effort to make sure that everybody gets out safely, they protect the property is safe, and that you're be able to return once the incident is resolved. And that's all I have for now.
Thanks to you all, I appreciate that. And I can't agree enough how amazing the relationships are. I started in the fire here in 1991 in Santa Barbara County, and it's just been better every year and astronomically better over the last 10 years. So we can have discussions on a frank manner that we wouldn't have been able to have before that, and nobody has hurt feelings. There's not territorial issues. We're all in it for the common good. So it's an amazing relationship, like everybody related. Montecito Fire, as part of the evacuation process, when we go to an incident in Montecito specifically, sorry about that, we are part of the incident command structure. And so we're deciding, along with our partners both in law and other unified commanders, we're deciding when to trigger evacuation, what evacuation zones might be triggered, whether they go into a warning or an order or possibly some other protective action like a shelter in place. We also consider the time of day and which way to direct people to leave the district, and even start considering how long before we can bring people back. All of these things are constantly being evaluated. They've mentioned Ready, Set, Go, and I'm not going to talk about this ad nauseum because I think I recognize most of the faces in here, and this isn't your first community meeting. So Ready, Set, Go, we all know we've been using it maybe 10 years or so. It's available on montecitofire.com, available at readysbc.org. You can use the planning checklist to create your process and make your plan for evacuation and who to contact. And you can go to those sites to get more information. We also have another kind of bill here on site. 3 things I'm just going to briefly mention is that while these things have a ready, set, go order, it's really all about preparedness. The only thing that is immediate, like got to do something right now, is go. The rest is about preparedness and awareness. The first part, ready, is really your awareness part. And we're talking about wildfire here, but I would say we've evacuated at least as often for storms as we have for wildfire in recent history. So awareness of the weather, awareness of the potential future weather, awareness of the traffic conditions on the roads, road closures. Go back to sproads.com. The time of day. Because everybody knows after 3:30, you can't really get down San Ysidro to the freeway, even when it's open, because the schools are getting out. Maybe you have something in your own scenario that's changing. Your car's in the shop, or your spouse is off-site, and you have to plan for those and reevaluate your plan. The set piece, that's really get loaded, right? That's to get your car ready, maybe fill it up with fuel, get all the things you need to take with you in your car, round up your animals, maybe take your loved one if you want to get them ready, medications, maybe computers or hard drives, photos, all those things. And here's the reason why you want to do it early. And we say this, leave early, and we always say leave early because it's a very stressful scenario for people to evacuate. If you prepare early, that's relieving your future stress. You don't realize it when you're preparing. It seems like a tedious thing to do to get all this things together. But when the time comes and you need to leave right now, if you're not ready, it is extremely stressful. And many of us live locally enough or have been evacuated in the past or have been involved in evacuations here. So we understand that it's stressful. And then go. If we say go, we want you to leave because it makes it safer for you and it makes it safer for us. And we can get more emergency responders in if there's less people trying to get out. Now, specifically with the current road construction that's going on, both on the highway and on surface streets, leaving early is even more important because the traffic flow is such a toss-up on whether or not you're going to be able to get to the freeway in a timely manner or you're going to be stuck for half an hour. If you leave early, before we necessarily put your zone in an order, it's going to, again, relieve that stress from you because now you've made a decision that you might have been ruminating on for a while, whether or not you should go. Now you've made a decision, you have a path. You're going to have less traffic because there's less people trying to get out. And once you've made that decision, it just alleviates a lot of that for you. So we're going to want you to leave early. Right now, we know we have the on-ramp, off-ramp issue at San Ysidro. The off-ramp, the on-ramp isn't going to be back on open until 2025. So this is a long-term thing. We have the closure of the overpass, which means you can't get on southbound. And it's really counterintuitive to drive south to Sheffield to go north to San Diego City. But this is why we say make a plan and reevaluate it consistently. We might direct you in conjunction with the other incident commanders. We might decide, you know what, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. We're not going to try and get them to the 101. We're going to direct people to take 192 south to get on the highway in Carpinteria. But maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but the Padero River crossing is kind of in this construction cycle also. So there's actually a bottleneck there. So all of these things, we're thinking about all these things when we make a decision on where and which direction to send you. So you may find yourself being directed at surface streets into Santa Barbara City. Just be patient and leave early and alleviate that stress. The last thing I'm going to reiterate, revisit your plan as much as early and as often as possible. SB roads, look at the weather, think about time of day, what you can do differently. I would even say test that plan out. Test it out at 10 a.m., test it out at 4 p.m. See, is that going to work for the times of day? Maybe you have a little different plan for the afternoon. So, Montecito Fire currently has 15 zones in our evacuation zone program. You can scan this QR code right now from back there. It'll bring up a website, ask you to put your address, and it'll tell you right now which zone you're in of those 15. You can also scan this in the flyer. It's on the slides in the flyer. You can go to montecitofire.com and find this link as well. Once you have your zones, it's important to know because as we evacuate, we do it by zone. You may hear over media that we're evacuating Montecito zones 3 and 4, and zone 5 is an evacuation warning. Well, now you know how that impacts you. If you're in zone 15, you don't have to worry about it. Future evacuations, always evolving. All the partners in Santa Barbara County are constantly looking at how we can make it smarter, smoother, lower impact to the community, and less stressful, hopefully. Right now, Montecito Fire's in a traffic modeling process of changing our evacuation zones to be smarter, less impactful, a little bit smaller zones that don't hit as many people where it's not needed. And likewise, we're looking at technology countywide that would make it smarter, smoother, lower impact, and more readily available communication. That being said, that's the end of the evacuation process here, and we're going to pass it back to Commander Welch for some talk about protective action.
All right, thank you. So I brought up Kelly Hubbard from OEM because when it comes to terminology, as far as the three types of protective actions that result in a message, it's always going to come through OEM. But as you all know, you've been through this before, the first two, the shelter in place and the evacuation warning, obviously are coming before the event, so we all have a little bit more time. It's that last one, like the division chief said, the actual order that is leave now that is the most important. And I just wanted to hit on the fact that there's a lot of times that we have to access your property as law enforcement, and we might not have time to call county fire to help us go in if we don't have an updated gate code. So if you can just make sure with your alarm companies you have updated gate codes, and if you don't have an alarm, just make sure Sheriff's Dispatch and Montecito Fire has a good gate code for you so we don't have to try to traverse your walls, which could be very challenging, especially for an older cop like me. But anyways, I'm going to let Kelly get into the actual wordings of the three types.
All right, so shelter in place isn't used too often for wildland fires, although that is a discussion that's being had about when and why it may be appropriate. So you're not going to see that too often for wildland fires. You're going to see that more for your storms or flooding events. And it is what it sounds like, exactly staying in your home. This is based on standardized language that we're using across the entire state. So I know sometimes there's been confusion when in the past there's been different language used between maybe Ventura County or another county. This is standardized language that all of the agencies have committed to. Now, what things I want to point out about evacuation warning, yes, it is a warning to prepare. However, if it is going to take you more time to evacuate, maybe you have several small children, you need to pull together some supplies and materials, maybe you have an elderly parent that you're taking care of, maybe you have access or functional needs, pets, large animals. When we say evacuation warning, if you are going to need that additional time to evacuate, we're really recommending that you're evacuating at this time. Okay, so if there's that additional needs or coordination that you might need to take on, this is the time that you might want to do that. I'm also going to throw in another note. If you know about a neighbor or a friend in your neighborhood who may be under that situation, maybe you aren't, maybe you don't need that additional time, but maybe you have a neighbor who has small children or an elderly parent or somebody who might need additional help, please use this time at the evacuation warning to check in with that neighbor and see if they might need assistance, because that's the type of outreach that they might need to help them safely evacuate from your community. And then the evacuation order is exactly that. That means that there is an immediate threat to life safety. It is immediate and it is go now. Don't decide now to go collect your photo albums and your mementos that you want to bring with you, right? You want to have those things already prepped and ready to go at that evacuation warning, and then when we get to that order, don't hesitate, leave now. Social science tells us that residents will check anything as typically 3 sources before they will follow our evacuation orders or notifications. So you guys are typically standard resident, standard individual. You're gonna go check the news, you're gonna check with your neighbor, you're gonna check the website, you might check another website, and not just our order. Social science tells us that. So we're gonna try to get this information at as many places as possible, but please, when you start hearing that, please really listen and start moving out of your community. Yes. I'll go into a couple other concepts here that talk about our learning objectives and what we do. I'm sorry, I have a flare right there. So when we put out our emergency alerts, our first objective is protection of life and property. The timing is of the essence. We know that. We're trying to get that message out as quickly as possible. When we put out a message, it's about communicating protective actions. So we're going to tell you what's happening and what action you need to take. Okay? And then we're going to use as many alerting tools as we have available to us, because we know they're not perfect. And we hear from residents every time we use them that they're not perfect. We know that. But that's why we use as many as possible, because we know they're not perfect. And so we want to try to use all of our options. So when we do this in our objectives, our first objective is if there is an evacuation order, my team and the Sheriff's Dispatch team, they're going to first focus on getting the orders out to the community. Because sometimes this whole team, they go, oh, we need to notify this community of an order, and I need to notify this community of a warning, and we just want these guys to have a heads up, right? And so we're going to prioritize the order. those people who have an immediate threat to life safety. Then we're going to work on that warning group, that readiness group. And then we'll start notifying the larger group. Heads up, you might be seeing smoke. Unless you're part of the evacuation order, you're okay. Hang on, pay attention, listen to the media, listen to the news, watch what's happening in your community. What are our tools? So I said we use all of the tools in our bag that we can, right? The first and foremost is Ready SBC alerts. And so you can go to readysbc.org to register for those. Key here is you must register for those alerts. Another key, one of the things we've noticed in our registration system is there's a lot of typos in addresses. There's a lot of people who may be registered through the Nixle concept of texting your phone number and registering that way. That means I don't have your address, your exact location. And so you might be registered for your zip code when you text, but you're not registered for your exact address. So I highly encourage you to go back to Ready SBC, even if you've registered before, update your email address, check and make sure you don't have a typo in your phone number or the zip code, or even check how your address is listed, street being spelled out versus ST. Making sure it's as complete as possible so that we don't have those glitches in the system where sometimes the address doesn't work because there's been a typo and it's been put in. So go in there. The other thing you might not know, you can register up to 5 addresses. So you can register your own home, maybe you have a family member within the community, maybe your work address. You can register a couple addresses so you get notifications for those. You have to have at least one contact method. So sometimes people put in the address and then they don't complete their registration because they think it's the address. So make sure you have that there. And then you can verify. You can say text message, you can say phone call, you can say email. I encourage you to mark all of them and make sure you provide all of them because you never know which one's going to work when, right? Our other tools. Nixle is the one I mentioned where you can text to the phone number to register by zip code. Again, this just registers you for the zip code. So if I'm only notifying an area within one zip code, not the whole zip code, you may not get that message because we don't have your specific address and we can't refine that message to those people. So you really want to make sure you have that address in there. Wireless emergency alerts. This is where we send them through the cell phone towers. So this goes to your cell phone. It's the beep that you get on your phone and the message that pops up. Sometimes these get confused with text messages. They look very similar. EAS is the one that you hear the annoying beep beep on the radio or you see the red banner on the TV. We try to use those as often as possible. And as mentioned before, door-to-door notification. As long as it's safe, we're going to continue to have search and rescue teams and law enforcement out doing door-to-door notification when possible. I want to add on there for the floods and the storms, we also added in the Sheriff's Department and Fire Department, our code air support team. They also use helicopters to help notify like our unhoused populations in rivers and waterways to really try to enhance that population. And I brought that up because sometimes we got calls of people being concerned or not understanding why the helicopters were going over. And so that's another avenue or aspect that could be used. This is a list. Obviously, you're not going to be able to capture all of this, but there's copies of the handouts outside as well. Many different ways to get additional information. You have a lot of agencies here represented. All of them have various social media channels. So if you're on social media, that's one way. You have your local TV, news, radio channels that we'll always try to share through. Ready SBC, we will put up an incident banner when an incident is starting, and you can click on that to get additional information. We're working to enhance, as mentioned earlier, our mapping capability and having an easier to use interactive map when we start doing these evacuation notices. And then when we activate it, we always have the county call center, and I know sometimes Montecito has activated a call center as well. And that will be announced through the various channels that you may see. 211 is always another option where we start reporting 211 of various pieces of information. And we'd like to encourage you to reserve 911 for emergency calls and not just those informational calls. And I think I'm at this point turning it over to the chief.
I want to thank all our community members that are here tonight. I appreciate your attendance because it helps us prepare for what we need to do as first responders. Without our community engaging in all the defensible space that they can make talk about and all those elements that keep our community safe, without your engagement, it hinders us from protecting our community and doing our jobs and also keeping our first responders safe. It takes, as we know, a community to prepare for the emergencies. I'd have to say, in regards to most places in the state of California, our community in Montecito and the front country of Santa Barbara County has seen its fair share of emergencies. So I really do appreciate you all being here tonight. I wanted to thank all our community partners that have come and spent their evening with us outside. Please take the time, ask them questions, get information that they brought with them. We are all partners in the preparation of emergencies, so I appreciate their time being here. Thank you to the Montecito Fire staff that worked real hard on putting things together, our law enforcement partners, OEM, and obviously all the other entities that make us successful. A couple of things came to mind for tonight. In regards to our department, we like to engage in our community and we like to adapt and make changes where we can make positive influence in what we do as a fire department. In regards to engaging, our fire prevention division is very engaged with the Montecito community and also engaged with our partners, both in the Park Summerlin Fire Department, the Santa Barbara City Fire Department, and obviously the Fire Safety Council on a county-wide coordinated effort in fire prevention. But with that, it takes a lot of community effort in regards to homeowner participation. We've got the prescribed delivery in progress. We had, I believe, 4 projects within the district this year, very successful with that. We've had our chipping program that you're familiar with each and every year. And obviously the tagging trim, which depends a lot on homeowner engagement. During the Zaca fire, it was interesting how much more material we cleared when I worked in the Mission Canyon area once the column of smoke was there. The residents that year completed about 50 tons of material pre-fire. When that column of the Zaca fire popped up, they cleared another 75 tons. So sometimes it takes those reminders, and that's why we're here tonight to remind you that we've got a lot of beautiful evenings ahead, but the threat of wildfire always there. We also do a lot of changes in regards to being prepared for our response capabilities. On June 5th, we changed in regards to our high response level. So all the operational county fire departments have increased staffing and resources once a wildland fire is determined in the 911 call center. So for our agency, we respond to different apparatus when we know we're going to a vegetation fire. We call back resources and personnel, and we engage in a different manner. And obviously from our area, in the front country of Santa Barbara with our joining agencies, we take any response to a vegetation fire very seriously. Another thing we engage in every day is weather. We're true partners with the National Weather Service out of Oxnard. And I say this because I want to allow you to know that even at 2 in the morning, while you might be wrestling at home, and that's what we expect. When our Cold Springs raw station or remotely automated weather station starts alerting to us that the winds are starting to pop 50 miles an hour, our relative humidities are starting to die down, we are monitoring that. We change our response and we're always constantly alert to that. I have to say this year alone, even after our major storms, about 2 in the morning one night, we started getting winds up towards 50 to 60 and actually popping 70 miles an hour. Our relative humidity dropped down to 11%, and we were actually in red flag conditions for 4 hours in our community already this year, and that was, I believe, 2.5 weeks after our storms. So that's how quick our weather patterns can change, and I wanted to let you know, as a fire department, we're monitoring that and staying on top of those changes and addressing our response plans as needed. We're also monitoring, obviously, the construction. We're aware of how those changes affect our community. And that's one of the points I'll get to when I talk about what we do to adapt. And we're also aware of the needs from the community. We attend our community meetings. We're very highly coordinated with the Montecito Association. We're listening to the feedback and the concerns of our citizens. for our elected officials, and we make those adaptations of what we need to do as a fire department to serve properly. A couple things, highlights in regards to how we've adapted recently. For those of you that are aware, we placed Station 90, we're calling it. It's a temporary fire station until August 22nd, in service south of the 101 corridor. That was something our department and our firefighters took on, and we're very, very grateful for their participation in being so supportive of getting that up and running. But currently, right now, we have 2 individuals in what we call a Type 6 engine, which carries about 250 gallons of water. When we're able to staff it with a paramedic, we're doing so. So our responses are not hindered by the 101 construction, by Sandy C. Road being closed, and also for all those other incidental construction projects that occur on a daily basis that even we as first responders aren't aware of. So we have to adapt. So that station is in service and will remain in service until August 22nd. And the plan for that is the Sandy Cedar overcrossing will open on the 24th, just in time for Montecito Union School, as well as the William Blanca schools and training schools opening up for the year. So our partners in that construction project are doing everything they can to get that bridge opened up. What else have we adapted to? Well, one of the things I want to let you know is that we're constantly watching our regional capabilities. Many members that are sitting up here tonight are on incident management teams, and many of our firefighters that are with us tonight serve on incident management teams. The first 3, Nick and May and Travis, all serve on federal incident management teams. Travis is going to be getting activated with Nick on Friday to be pre-positioned for fire activity or potential fire activity in the southern part of the state. We support our members in our agency to be on those incident management teams for the amount of coordination, the relationships they build, and that when we have incidents here in our community, we have individuals that are trained, engaged, and know how to respond. MAPE is an incident operations section chief on a Type 1 incident command team. That's as high as it gets in regards to incident command structure. So I'm very impressed with all our levels of participation. We have members out here in our department that are on duty today that also serve on incident management teams. And that's how we make sure that we're always prepared with our folks in regards to their level of training. It allows us to reach out. As a fire chief, I can make personal phone calls to chief officers in Ventura County, in LA County, and St. Louis County if we have needs. Sometimes the systems and the wheels turn slow in the ordering process, but personal phone calls and knowing our partners throughout the state and also through our partners in the Forest Service, it allows us to get resources here quickly to engage on incidents. So our hope is that we don't have fires, at least in the front country this year. We've been through a lot already with the storms. We know we're preparing for an El Nino season coming up again. We're not sure what that's going to do for our current rainfall totals, but we continue to be prepared. So as a fire chief, I want to just reiterate, that is our commitment to our community. And we're always being prepared. We're trying to adapt where the needs are there for us to serve the community. And we appreciate you being here tonight. One of the things I want to talk about, one other idea we have to adapt is our preparedness meetings for next year. We want to reach everybody in our community. I counted 12 folks tonight. I think we have a lot more than that, just in first responders and our community partners outside. So one of the things we've talked about in our staff meetings this week, the potential of creating a video or a different way of getting our message out next year. So I wanted to let you know now that even though we may not have a community meeting, we are already building plans on trying to do something where we can reach out to more of our community. So there is no time frame limit when people can watch a video on our website, or at least get out to other partners and stuff. So that is something that we plan on making some changes for this next year in 2024 in regards to our preparedness for the year. If anybody's here tonight who might have suggestions for Christina, please speak with her. If there's elements that you came here tonight hoping to get answers on or things that interest you as a community member, please share those with Christina just to help us kind of build as we get ready for our 24 presentation in regards to preparedness. So thank you so much for being here tonight.